Today I'm going to tackle the sunroof on my BMW E36. It broke, and this happens if anything gets underneath here and you can kind of jam it. There are a couple little plastic pieces that will snap. They're kind of difficult to replace just because it's hard to line everything up, but it's definitely doable. And the parts themselves run maybe 25 bucks a piece, so it's not necessarily expensive unless something serious is wrong. Also, the things that you need to do this job, just a 17mm wrench, a T25 torque wrench, and then optionally some little tool to reach in and help you line things up. And most importantly, quite a bit of patience. The first step here is to get the metal sunroof off of the top. You got to do that from underneath. With this kind of back a little bit, you can grab it here and just slide it back by hand. If you slide it almost all the way back, you still want to be able to grab it, but if you slide it all the way back, it will reveal 3 nuts right here that are securing the back of the sunroof. Our first step is to take these 3 off. With a 17mm socket, you can get the middle one with the socket, but for the sides, you may want a wrench to reach in because they're awfully close to the edges. Once you remove the last of these, the 3 nuts, the back of the sunroof should lift up like this. Our next step is to release the bolts that are holding the front on. Now they are right here and right here. So with your T25 and an extension, because you got to reach in, if you look in this headliner, this plastic liner right here kind of folds in, and there's actually a little bit of an indent where the screw head is. It fits in right there. So you can you won't be able to see it on the camera, but if you look right in there, you'll actually be able to find what you're looking for right there. Alright, that one's out. They kind of fall down in the track, but we'll be able to pull them out as soon as this comes off. There we go. So now it'll all lift out. Moving around to the top, now kind of see what you're doing. Here is where this screw went in like that. That was the tricky one to get out, and the one that's even trickier to get back in. First thing you want to do is grab that, put it in a safe place. Same thing with the one on the other side. There is a lifting block back here that is in pieces, so obviously that is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And then up here, this sliding piece right here is what this lifting rail is supposed to be connected to, and it's obviously broken. So we need to pull those pieces out. This kind of snapped in there like this. We've got to pull those pieces out, slide the new ones back in. These pieces are plastic, so they're common pieces to break. If anything jams the sunroof and puts pressure on it, they're likely to break. Other things that you can look at and make sure your sunroof is all in working order. These little rods that stick out here sometimes get bent. There's one here, and there's also one right here that can be bent, so you'll want to check for that as well. So once you get it apart, you can kind of see the part numbers that you need. I'll put those part numbers up on my blog so that you have them. But that tells you kind of what we're dealing with. To get these parts out, which is our next step, you need the T25, same as what we used before. And there's this block right here, right next to it, there's a T25 screw. You just pull out like that. And then this lifts out, like so. The front plastic block just slides freely, so you can slide it up to that point and then lift it out. This back block, however, the lifting block, is connected to the drive and won't move as long as the motor is engaged. So to get at this, we got to go back round and pull out the motor. Before we pull out the motor though, because once we pull out the motor, this will slide freely, it'll mess up the alignment. Now on this side, the position of these things is already all messed up because it got jammed and broken. That side is okay though, so I want to reinstall it lined up to where that one is, and then everything should work first try. I'm just going to mark the position of this side on the rail. With this done now, hopefully I can line the other side up correctly, and it'll be in pretty good shape. So this is the control panel, or the access panel for the motor. You can just pull it out. You'll see the clips here on the front. Should just pull out. Take that off. Here's the sunroof motor, and it's held in place by 3 torque screws. These are the same size that we've been using all along, T25. I'll go ahead and remove this. There we go. Takes some doing. So the gear right here just engages here. So once this is pulled off, the sunroof will move freely. With the sunroof motor disengaged, this block, we can now push it. It moves a little bit, takes a little pushing, but it moves pretty easily. We can slide it up right to this point where we took off that piece, and then it just comes out easy. With all the pieces I need removed, I'm now going to clean this up and make sure it's properly lubricated and everything. At this point, compressed air is a great tool to make sure you get all the grime out. So I've cleaned it up and added a little white lithium grease, and it's now time to get the new parts in. I'm going to put the lifter block in first. That's this guy. This is in the same position that it was in when I took the old one out, and you'll notice there's a little channel right here that slides right on that cable. We got to fit this side underneath the rail like that. This lifter part goes forward, of course, and that channel fits right on there like that. It should now slide back. Alright, so that's in there. The next job is to replace the lifter arm and the front plastic piece. It comes together. The metal arm itself doesn't really seem to break, but it comes as a set. They are specific left and right, so be careful when you're purchasing it. What you want to do is have the lifter arm slid on here, but not connected here. The lifter block slid in here, and then at this point you can put this plastic piece vertically on here like that, slide it down, and then you have just enough play to slide that forward to where this gap is, and then just tweak it in there like that, and now it's in. So now you can move your lifter block back to where it needs to go, line this up, put that in there. At this point you're basically done. You need to put this clip back on here to secure it. Right there. And then all the new pieces are in. Now, before I reinstall the motor, I'm going to line my lifter block up with the other side. The other side was undamaged, so it's in the right position. So I just measured the other side. I marked the other side. Now I'm going to measure it, make sure that this guy is in the same spot. This is just the block where I can remove and install things. T25 screw right there. I'm gonna go ahead and reinstall the motor. Make sure you get this gear sliding in that hole there. So when you're reinstalling it, you'll notice there was one longer screw. That guy goes right here. The other two shorter screws, one on the front, one right here. Alright, putting the access panel on. Don't forget to snap the switch back in. So now for the hard part, actually, which is putting the sunroof back on. It's difficult because it's really hard to get the screws into these holes. You can usually do it, but there's also a little notch right here that needs to fit in. So you have to get that lined up and the screw hole lined up on both sides, and that can be quite tricky. So I definitely recommend you try and get the front screws in first. I'm only showing one side, but I'm working back and forth on both sides, and it's helpful to have a tool that you can kind of reach in and help you align things. There's that little nub that I was talking about earlier here, and then there's the torque screw here, and you got to get them both lined up and screwed in. Once you got those tightened up, the rest of the job is pretty easy. You might need to slide this around a little bit to get at your get this lined up. As you're doing this, you'll notice these pieces right here. These, if you slide them like this, it raises the back of the sunroof up a little bit, and if you slide them like this, it lowers it. So this is a way that you can kind of adjust to make sure it fits right. I'm going to start kind of in the middle there. So moving along to the top side of the car, you can check fitment. If the back side of the sunroof is too low or too high, you can just slide those wedges back and forth. The front side doesn't really have that many adjustments, but if it is sticking out significantly, it's probably because you didn't get the little nubs on those sliding parts lined up. So those will stick out and they'll prevent it from going down all the way. So that's it. With that done, you cannot put this in.